going on, Jerome's? So Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has had two fantastic off seasons, especially in free agency. But for the draft, Vikings don't have a ton of draft capital. And now, is there a way that they could get a little bit more during the draft, even before the draft? Yes, the Vikings could trade down, but also could they make a couple of trades before the draft and or during the draft to be able to recoup some draft capital? Now, there's a couple of Vikings on the rooster who would have some trade value, and I understand trading guys in-house. Sometimes it's unpopular because you get attached to these players, but also sometimes you trade Ed Ingram for a 6th-round pick, and that 6th-round pick gets flipped into Jordan Mason. You know what I mean? So this is going to be a tough conversation. So some of these players are very near and dear to your and my hearts, but the business is the business sometimes, right? And we do have to trust Kwesi in all this. So first up, Ty Chandler. So Ty Chandler, it just hasn't clicked. You know, he was a member of the 2022 draft class, has all the speed and attributes in the world. Had a 100-yard game against the Bengals back in 2023. But with Jones and Jordan Mason, it's clear that he isn't that guy. Plus, last year, Cam Akers was traded for and clearly assumed the running back 2 duties, just said duty ahead of Ty Chandler. So do the Vikings look to move him? It is a very deep running back class, but just given Chandler's physical attributes, could the Vikings potentially squeeze out a day 3 pick? I mean, it certainly is possible, but it's something that would have to happen during the draft in all likelihood. Say a team misses out on a running back that they covet, they still want some speed and some return ability in the backfield. We'll give the Vikings a 6th or 7th round pick. Certainly won't be bad. Next one. So Jalen Speedy Nailor. Now this one would be controversial. Again, a part of the 2022 class. Nailor had a career year last year, helping fill in for Jordan Addison when he was out with that injury. 3 straight games with a touchdown, 6 on the season, career highs, and he is a nice vertical option. But the question is, do you see him being brought back by the Vikings after his rookie deal is done? Now, there is also some meta stuff here too, since Nailor is one of Justin Jefferson's best friends on the team. How would Justin Jefferson feel about this? But Nailor, given the wide receiver room, they did bring in Rondale Moore. Now, I do think that stylistically, Nailor and Rondale Moore can certainly coexist, especially since Addison's facing suspension. I am worried about them stepping on toes since stylistically they're much different receivers. But could the Vikings potentially get some trade value for Jalen Nailor in a not deep wide receiver class? It could be possible, right? Next. Brian Asamoah. Again, another member of the 2022 class. You're sensing a theme. Players that are on the tail end of their rookie deal in a contract year haven't quite panned out, but never underestimate other GMs. Mom, I can change him sentiment, because it's not just Kwesi. Other GMs and coaches think the same way. And Asamoah, coming in out of Oklahoma, a bit of undersized linebacker, a bit of a linebacker safety hybrid, has played some solid special teams, but just hasn't really found footing on the depth chart at linebacker. Clearly behind Pace and Cashman. You look at Kamu as well as now Eric Wilson leapfrogged him as well. So Asamoah is also a name that was brought up at the trade deadline last year as someone who potentially could be moved and potentially could seek out greener pastures. And overall, the off-ball linebacker draft class is pretty okay. But Asamoah, could he be worth a conditional 6th or 7th for a team out there? Sure. Now we get to 2 names that are going to be controversial, but also I don't care, because that's what we do here. Andrew Van Ginkel. So Andrew Van Ginkel was fantastic last year. The couple pick sixes, just doing some great things. A starter on for the Pro Bowl. It was great. Andrew Van Ginkel coming up from the Dolphins, a Flores guy, having a career season. And no, you don't get rich by giving away your best players, but there's a couple things to consider. So Van Ginkel turns 30 in July. He has had a history of injuries, was dinged up at times last year as well. Isn't a contract year because he signed a 2-year contract last offseason when he came to the Vikings. So either the Vikings should look to extend him or potentially trade him. And also, his trade value will never be higher. It just won't be. Career high in sacks, those 2 pick sixes, starter in the Pro Bowl. His trade value will never be higher. And question you got to ask yourself right now, say you're offered a 2nd round pick for Andrew Van Ginkel right now. Would you take it? I mean, it's something to consider, especially since the Vikings are definitely lacking in that second round where a lot of the talent is going to be scooped up. And defensively, so Van Ginkel, Grenard, fantastic free agent signings last year. But you do have the rise of Diamond Dallas Turner, who had 3 sacks in very limited duty, just had duty as a rookie. Gabe Murphy and Bo Richter, 2 UDFAs, they certainly like in that mix as well. And like I said, it's a question of, do you extend Van Ginkel? Like, do you want him on this team for the next 2 to 3 years? And it's a beautiful story. Local guy, pride of Iowa. His family likes him in the Midwest. So they can attend to his games, but at a certain point, the business is indeed the business. And if a team comes in and offers you a second-round pick for Van Ginkel, you got to think about it. Lastly, TJ Hockenson. Now, this one's going to get blowback, but also it sucks because Hockenson, in 2023, before Dirty Kirby Joseph blew up his knee, he was on pace for a 100-catch, 1,000-yard season. And he came back last year after that ACL midseason, and he looked fine, but is he going to resume being TJ Hockenson? Now, he's going to be another year removed from the ACL, so I think that he can resume being a top 3 tight end in this league and not 3. But the Vikings have a decision, and we've gotten yelled at because we said that Hockenson is basically in a contract year, even though the Vikings have his rights for the next 2 years, because his $10.9 million base salary is fully guaranteed. But after that, his contract gets very edible. It runs out of guarantees. He's got big time cap hits. He's going to be 29 next football season, so some decisions have to be made. And also, frankly, after that schedule release video where he was a fake ass Steve Jobs, maybe the Vikings should just get rid of him. I don't know, but I love TJ Hockenson. Also, I think that he does have a ton of trade value because, say it would have to be a specific situation. Like, you wouldn't trade Hockenson before the draft or after the draft, but say the Vikings do land Colston Loveland, the pride of Michigan, reuniting him with J.J. McCarthy, and say that you still retain Josh Oliver. Now, if you're a team that is in the tight end market and say that Loveland and Warren are off the board and maybe you're not in on Arroyo, you're not in on Fannin, etc., and in between day 1, day 2, Thursday, Friday, say a team comes in and offers you a second and a fourth, or a second and a future second, or a second and a third for Hockenson. Again, tough conversations, but at a certain point, you do have to consider it, right? And I don't know. I want things to work out with Hockenson. I want things to work out with Van Ginkel, but also at the same time, I'm a realist. And I think that if you get insane value, especially in a spot where the bulk of the talent in this group is going to be at the top of day 2, you do have to consider it where you have a player that's in a contract year and a little bit aging, as well as Hockenson, who he wasn't the same after that ACL. Can he resume being that dude next year with J.J. McCarthy? Yes, hopefully you can. But at a certain point, everyone and everything has a price, and it's something that the Vikings should and could consider trying to get back some of that draft capital. But your thoughts are thoughts. 5 potential Vikings that could be traded before the draft or during the draft, getting some picks. Don't F them picks. Yeah. Anyways, let us know your thoughts, our thoughts, comment section. You guys are the best. You know what to do. Skol, production value.